Hi, everybody. Welcome to Capacity Building Institute's webinar. We do this every month. We're going to see some of your fellow participants join us here, and we look forward to that. I love seeing all of the attendees join us. One of my favorite parts, if you've joined us before, is seeing where everybody's coming from. Throw it in the chat there and let me know where you are. I'm in beautiful, rainy, stormy Ottawa today. And of course, the Anishinaabe territory. Appreciate everybody joining us today. Let us know where you're joining from. We've got such an interesting topic today. We're going to be talking about leadership, transition leadership today, and it's going to be wonderful. Oh, Victoria, BC. I would love to be in Victoria with you, Della. I love that part of the world. Wonderful to see everybody joining today. I'm seeing some of those regular names. I think that's my friend Natalia Lafreniere joining us today. Natalie, it's so great to have you here, and lots of people coming in. Ked and Ken and Della, Celeste, Alex. Wonderful to see everybody here, and looking forward to our chat today. Before we go any farther, I want to do one thing, and that is introduce my good friend, Hannah Rockburn. She's going to take us through, tell us everything about CBI, and then I'll be back to you. Hannah, over to you, my friend.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Sam. Welcome, everyone. I'm just going to talk a little bit about CBI before we get into our awesome and amazing speakers tonight. So, CBI, we are a nonprofit organization that provides training, coaching, and mentorship support to staff and volunteers to environmental nonprofits all across Canada. And we try and aim to provide equal opportunity and access to capacity building training for every small shop nonprofit environmental leader across Canada. We have 6 main capacity building themes that we focus on with all of our trainings, from financial management to volunteer engagement, communications, risk management, and all organizational culture. Our main programs and training that we currently have going on is our webinar series. So welcome tonight. It's a free once a month webinar that we put on the 4th Wednesday of every month. And we have some amazing lineup speakers for this year. So I would definitely stay tuned and sign up for future webinars. We have our capacity building certificate program. This is our flagship program that is aimed for executive directors, program leaders in the sector. And then we also have our intern training program. And this one is almost like a light version of the CBCP. It's meant more for recent graduates and youth between the ages of 18 and 30 that are just getting into the field and the sector and kind of wanting to get that experience and learn more about nonprofits in general. And for that program, I just wanted to also note that we are currently looking for Atlantic and Northern region organizations to send their youth to this training. So we have been very fortunate and have received some extra funding from the Youth Harbor to provide this training for free for organizations in the Atlantic and Northern regions for their youth. So if that's something you're interested in, or you have some youth staff, then I highly suggest reaching out and applying for our program, and I'll put the link in the chat when I'm done to learn a little bit more. And if you're not in those regions, it is also subsidized, so it only costs $150 for the 6-month program per person you put through the training. So it's amazing training and a great skills development opportunity that I would highly suggest applying for if you have some youth staff. We have our amazing core lead trainers here at Capacity Building Institute. Sam, that's here tonight, as well as Rob, Barb, Alex, and we now have Dwayne helping us with our DEI portion of our programming. And also just want to take a quick moment to thank our funders and sponsors that help us put together our training, and we would not be able to provide these services for everyone without their help. So if you want to learn more about any of our training programs or just want to have a chat to see how we can help your organization in capacity building more broadly, you can send an email to us at info@capacitybuilding.ca. You can give me a phone call, or if you happen to be in the Ottawa area, you can also stop by our shared office space here in Alta Vista. Also, I'd say save the date. As mentioned, we have these webinars once a month. So our August webinar is going to be held on the 28th from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. And the topic is going to be the role of artificial intelligence in fundraising for nonprofits. So we have some great presenters and speakers from Namaste Data and Future for Good that will talk a little bit more about how you can implement AI and the best practices for implementing AI when you're talking about fundraising. So I think that would be a really interesting and fun topic, and I'd love for you guys to sign up, and you can do that on our website at capacitybuilding.ca/events. And with that, I will pass the floor back to Sam.
Well, thank you so much, Hannah. Appreciate it. Hannah is the glue that keeps us all together every month. We appreciate her very, very much. I'm very excited to talk about today's topic. I'm Sam Laprade, and I've been in the fundraising world for over 33 years and held many different roles in the community and nationally. And I wanted to speak today with Robert Pye. Hi, Robert. How are you? Robert's going to join us. There he is, all the way from beautiful Ontario. Thanks so much for spending time with us. And Robert is the Executive Director of Watersheds Canada. So tell us where you're coming from today, Robert.
Well, so far it's sunny skies here in my little community of Norwood, and north of 7, as I call it. And our Watersheds Canada has an office in Perth, and most of our team actually is in Perth. And I have the opportunity to be home office in the community of Norwood.
That's wonderful. And for those that may not be familiar with Watersheds Canada, give us a sense of what you do. What's your mandate?
Our mandate is stewardship, promotion, getting people involved in freshwater protection and stewardship activities on Canada's lakes and rivers. And our organization is 22 years in the making. And we've our work, our specialty is really on the shore, but we've also been working quite successfully in water for the creation of fish habitat. So we deliver education programs across the country. We are national in scope. And although our team and our office is primarily in Perth, we're able to, through great delivery partners, deliver programs like the Natural Edge and Love Your Lake and nature discovery programs, our education line of programs across the country through great partnerships.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. So you're executive director, and I always like, and whether it be the title of executive director, CEO, it doesn't matter. I mean, all of those titles mean that you're the head of an organization. Did you wake up one morning and you were like, I'm an executive director today?
Yeah, I always look at the business card and feel like there's been a misprint somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know that I accept or embrace the title as much as perhaps others do. But I come at the executive director responsibility with a lot of enthusiasm. And yeah, I don't know that. I think I speak for a lot of executive directors or CEOs in our field. I don't know that anybody really goes through school and so on and says, I'm going to be the executive director of a hardworking charity. It's probably the outcome of a journey that I've had, a journey like mine, where you find yourself in the role in the behind the desk and in the field with volunteers, and there's all of a sudden this feeling like I can make a difference. But in order to get to that decision making and that level where you can put some of the puzzle pieces together, the role of the executive director is almost a natural trajectory for growth, and not for ego and not for personal gain by any means. It's about being invested so much in the cause and the organization that you represent that you want to run on all cylinders, and you want to be at that level.
For sure. And passion drives so many people to those positions, right? And I think what happens, this is just my own opinion. I think a lot of the times the sector, I mean, we have an HR crisis. There's no two ways about it in this sector. Finding great leaders, keeping great leaders, retaining great talent. So I think in many ways, sometimes what happens is they're like the most passionate person, and they've got a ton of skills. They put them in the position, and automatically assume that everybody has those leadership skills. But those tend to be developed over a period of time. How have you worked on your leadership skills?
Right. The leadership skills question depends on where you're at in life. Somebody can talk a good game about having leadership skills in terms of I'm really good at delegating, but if they're not really in a position where they need to delegate too much, you can't really say that.
Right.
You almost need to find. I ran programs for years, and then I ran communications, and I was always on the front line of volunteer initiative. So the leadership is almost baked into the role that you're in. And when you get to a level of senior management in a nonprofit or a charity, for example, you find yourself at the table and you're able to contribute with confidence. And I think that that's the greatest sign of leadership right there, is to be able to listen with confidence and to contribute with confidence. And rather than spinning wheels, you're able to put things into action or inspire others to do so. For me, that's the ultimate signal of leadership.
Yeah.
When I was starting out in early in my career, by the way, I've been in nonprofits from day one. Right out of community college. My community college co-op turned into a job that I was into a workplace that I was there for 25 years. So I've only had two jobs, Watersheds Canada being the second, but always with hardworking charities and people around me that were super passionate about, in my case, conservation and the role of people being active and supportive of the environment. Yeah, anyway, I just think that you tap into your passion, as you said, you tap into your passion to really contribute.
No, absolutely. I love the fact you included listening there, because I think if I think back to, well, I'll just call it my dad's generation, like 40 years ago, it was the boss said this, and then you do this, and you don't ask any questions, and you just, you do your work. And if you ask questions, you were kind of a bit of a pain in the butt. And now this whole model of servant leadership, listening, really empowering and encouraging staff to think outside the box and to come with solutions. And, that has really changed over the last couple of decades. How have you seen that evolve in your career?
I've always I've never second guessed or underestimated the value of uh, the expertise of staff around me, but also the volunteers in the field and the ones who really pay the bills for the organization and the donors. I've always felt in 2 years with Watersheds Canada, I'll leave this desk in a minute to go work on a project with staff because I like being shoulder to shoulder, and I like that you pick up a lot from the volunteers, and you pick up they may not have come to you with a specific statement, but you can pick up on where they're coming from and how their lifestyle and how their passion revolves around the work of the organization. So a critical step in my leadership development over the last 2 years has really been getting out in the field. And I don't want to be a desk jockey. I mean, I want to be active in doing things. So and it's been critical for my development in the organization with Watersheds Canada is to really spend time with my staff.
No, it's crucial. And for those staff that, basically, you're working with day in and day out, how do you as a leader ensure that they're being heard? Because I think a lot of times, to your point earlier about, a lot of people can sort of say, oh, we have a culture here that people can come to me, but how do you ensure, are there things in place? Like is it an opportunity to meet on a regular basis? Is it a suggestion, a sort of email train that you've got going on? Like, how do you encourage that sort of two-way dialogue?
Well, we meet a lot. We spend a lot of time together, and I think we've created a safe space, and that's really important. That um, I feel like my team needs to hear it often from me. That feel free to challenge me on this. Feel free to question me on this. I'm opening that door to say that I may not have this all right. And it's it's never a hardline decision. It's like this is the way it's going to be. On a few occasions, you just need to say in this role, I feel really strongly that we're going to have to do this because of all these reasons. And an executive director has to wear a brave face too with staff. That there are some things that the executive director will be aware of in terms of budget realities and forecasting. Input from board. I try to be as transparent as possible, but the executive director position requires a bit of a bit of bit of armor, and that confidence needs to work with staff. But to answer your question, I we meet a lot and we collaborate, we share ideas, and the praise doesn't end up on out of my email, or the praise doesn't stop with me. I make sure that the praise is carried by everybody involved.
Love that. And just remind everybody attending today, I'm so grateful everyone's here. I wanted to remind you that there's an opportunity for you to ask questions too. So I get to ask some, but we're looking for your questions as well. All the great people that have joined us. Many times it's from across the country. So thanks so much for tuning in today. So feel free to throw those in the chat or in the Q&A, and Hannah and I will manage that and make sure we get to your questions as well. You mentioned boards and, just being really transparent and really vulnerable for a second. That's been probably one of my biggest challenges is, working with a board and just feeling like I want to get more done that's happening, or, you get sort of 10 people around the table, 5 are real doers and 5 you have to kind of pull teeth to get them at the meeting. And I'm not suggesting you share all the dirty laundry about your board, but I think working with a board can have its challenges. How do you manage that? Because I often think about it as an executive director, is you've got your bosses, which are your staff, and your bosses, which are the board, and you're kind of lonely in the middle sometimes.
Yeah, I'm finding that I'm probably not asking enough of the board. It never ceases to amaze me how fast board members get back to me on an individual question basis. I'm probably struggling as a new executive director to find, I confess, what is like how much is information overload? How much do they sit around going like, we haven't heard from our executive director in, going on 3 weeks. What's going on over there? Or do they have the confidence that things are running? And I would rather give quick bullet points on, on high level topics. And that's just where I'm at. We've got a great board that has lots to contribute, and it's up to the executive director to make sure that they're being heard and they're actually serving their volunteer role in a great capacity. Also, I want to find out more these days from my own board, what kind of what kind of recognition do they want, if any? What fires them up? I think that perhaps our board is perhaps too low key and too polite in their contribution for Watersheds Canada. And do I want to amplify that? Yeah, absolutely. But that's got to make sense I don't want to embarrass anybody or put anybody out. And there's some people perhaps on our board that are trying to keep it low key because they've got, they have professional obligations, and some of our board members report to other boards too. So yeah, that's been quite a challenge for me to wrap my head around as to what communications is enough for our board.
Yeah, that's a great one for sure. And I find too, so much energy goes into those board meetings, right? To make sure that they're productive and that things are actually moving. Working on those board meetings as well can be such a big job for the executive director as well. Do you find that?
Yeah, and I would like to see my board members beyond the board meetings. I pay attention to what they're doing in their own community, in their own profession. I try to actually that's been something I try to present at every board meeting, because I want them to see where our staff is, but I also want them to know that we see where they are too. So quite often I'll make notes. For example, if board members have shown up in their local newspaper as, supporting a kids fishing derby, or if they held a great conference with another board that they serve on, if they've received some sort of recognition, I bring that up. I want them to know that they're visible for us, and that we just don't see them in a Zoom box or in we don't get together face to face, unfortunately, very often, but we're hoping to change that too.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk about the first 100 days of an executive director position. So, I always think about we ask prime ministers and presidents, what did you do in your first 100 days? So talk to me about the first 100 days. What should that look like, right, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, I want to say that Watersheds Canada did things really, really well with the executive director onboarding process. Um, and because I've heard of the train wrecks with other organizations. First of all, I had a shadow period with the former executive director, Barb King, who's
Yes.
on your great team. And so Barb was right there with me, and that was critical. I probably will admit that I probably could have had a year of shadowing with her, but that's just not practical. That's just you have to learn fast. But one of the smartest things the board, and I believe that Barb was instrumental in this decision as well, was in the onboarding process, hiring an outside consultant to work with the executive director and the outgoing executive director to have regular conversations. And that consultant provided a bit of a framework on how she would work with me. I had one-on-one time with her, so I got to really be vulnerable and share. Like and I was scared as hell about certain things, especially. And when I started, my first 100 days was right into audit.
Oh,
uh,
I
you know,
hear
and,
you.
and lots of other things. There's lots of moving parts going on that that's what I signed myself up for. You can't just catch an executive director onboarding break when things are just, we're good here. Our plates are empty. Just, take your sweet time. You got to get up and going. So I want to mention her name if I can,
Of
because
course,
she's been
yeah.
on your show. But Kristen Tully from Entre Mission was the one that worked with me directly, and she was outstanding. And she did a great job in communicating with our board and developing a framework, and even set up what would be the cycle for my own performance reviews on 3 month, 6 month, I believe 9 month and 12-month increment. And my gosh, I'm coming up to my 2-year anniversary, and it's super fast. It's just a blur, but it was done really, really well.
I got to be honest with you, Robert, I don't hear that very often.
Okay.
So congratulations to Watersheds Canada, honestly, and to Barb, who is a superstar and sounds like you
Yeah.
found another superstar as well. And I think that combination of a great onboarding process really can make all the difference, right? Probably saved you hours and days to onboard with Barbara. What was some of the biggest lessons you learned during that process?
Well, I realize that I'm a really crappy administrator. Like I'm not, as I said, I don't feel like I'm a desk jockey. I don't pour over spreadsheets, and I don't know QuickBooks, and I don't know. There's a whole bunch of things that I don't know.
Mhm.
What I learned really quickly though is this is the reason you have a team around you.
Mhm.
And and they've always got my back. They're a tremendous team, and I'm finding that I think the biggest thing I've learned is find a steady pace, find a nice pace. I think that probably I came out of the interview that landed me this job and thought that I need to deliver on the big talk that's won me this job in the first couple of months. Like I probably presented some big ideas and some big vision for the organization. Now the rubber needs to meet the road. Now you're in the position, but then you realize, you know what? If I had gone forward and started to, try to implement those things, I would have embarrassed myself. We wouldn't have been ready. So I think that we're at the pace, and I'm looking back right now, and there's a whole bunch of things I've been talking about. I can't get into it right now about where the organization could go.
Mhm.
And it's far more complex than I probably given. And we have to get to that point. But we are moving ahead. Like we are in growth mode, and we're coming up with some great things. One of the things we're coming up with actually came from one of our funders' ideas, and we realized that's exactly what the organization needed. We are planning to host our first ever conference in
Great.
Yeah, in 2025. So that's a huge first for the organization. Staff are really pumped up about it. The board's engaged, and I just think it's going to be a great event for Watersheds Canada because we've been essentially coming into waterfront communities, doing our great stewardship work, going home, being virtual, being on social media. But where's the point where people actually get to meet Watersheds Canada? So I think our conference is designed as a stewardship format. We're actually going to be outside doing things. It's not going to be tablecloths and PowerPoints conference. It's going to be outside doing stuff. And it's going to be cool. And I think that people are really going to have that. We want to have people come to the Watersheds Canada house for a couple of days and enjoy what we have to offer and get excited about the growth of our organization. And that's going to happen. So again, that was a vision that was probably is not anything I would have come up with on my own. That was presented by our first ever legacy donor who said that I see this being an opportunity for Watersheds Canada, and the funding for that opportunity comes from their pocketbook.
How brilliant, right? It goes back to listening too,
Yeah,
right? A
well,
lot of people would be like, oh, a funder, they don't understand, what really goes on here, but you listened, and how amazing to see that, work with your mandate too. That's amazing.
right. So I'm super proud of that, and I think we're working with a great outside organization to help us put together the puzzle pieces. And that's the other thing too. An executive director has to realize what can be done in-house and what needs to go outsource and where to bring in the expertise and what are the efficiencies. Maybe you just and perhaps something is going to be outsourced just for year one, and you realize, we've got some confidence now we can take it on our own. So that's what I love about this job is creating new relationships, asking why not, taking those. And I think that's probably what frustrated me for so long with my other career is that I was just at that senior management, but not top management. And it's like, I felt like everything was an uphill battle every time you want to present an idea. And I just felt like that was the logical step is to be an executive director and to find out for myself how those decisions can be made and that they need to be made quickly and with confidence.
Anything you do different?
I probably, in terms of preparation for executive director,
Yeah.
yeah, like I'm actually really out of touch on some of my computer skills, and I'm on a computer all day, but there are some things that staff do to access documents and organize things and be on top of things and put together spreadsheets and all that. I believe that I'm humbled, I guess, at my lack of some technical skills. I probably would have, yeah, I probably would have spent more time right away getting to know some of the communities that support us, but that had to come at the right time too. The other factor is we're just kind of at the time I started, we're just coming out of COVID too, so there's probably a long list of things. I probably do things differently, but we're working right now, so it's full speed ahead.
That's great. And what's something you were just absolutely so glad that you did it that way? You wouldn't do it any other way.
We brought uh, control and design and implementation of our social media in-house. And we have social media, I think, is a big deal for me. I think that is a great way to connect. And we also were successful in a Google ad grant that has allowed the organization to get a considerable amount of search engine optimization in a way that we could never have done before. So much so that we've experienced dramatic growth in our website traffic. We doubled our database in about a year's time. We had about a 30% growth in our social media following. All that points to, our we acted fast on that part. We acted fast as a team through some of the contacts I had to really focus heavily on growing the brand by growing our audience and getting the audience to feel good about our work and seeing our impact. And you can't count on an annual report to get that across. You have to just, I call it drip marketing. You just have to show them every single day and just blow people away every day about the work you're doing, and have them engaged and see it come in real time, not in this, nice package, with a ribbon or a bow or whatever the expression is on an annual report. It has to be delivered every single day.
Absolutely. I love that. I think that's really important because I think a lot of people do put, and not that, we need annual reports, and I get
Sure,
why they're important.
sure.
But I think at the end of the day that, that consistency
Yeah,
is what's great. And then the annual report comes up, it's kind of a, wraps it all into a neat package you can send to funders and share with potential, board members and potential donors. But I think that's a wise decision.
absolutely.
Yeah. So we've got some questions. We're going to encourage more questions to come in to us either through chat or the Q&A. Happy to take those. We'll get to those in a couple of minutes. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, the journey that you took. And it's interesting because so often now in this generation, people have had 4 or 5 jobs before they've got to be executive director. Yours is a little bit different. I'm fascinated by it. But talk to me a little bit, any advice for somebody that sees executive director or CEO in their future?
Well, I think a lot of people underestimate their potential for that role. Quite often, particularly in the field of fish and wildlife, I just think that people feel like, I do benthic studies, or I do fish and wildlife assessments, and that's where I'm at. But if you get into, if you get into a happy hour conversation with them, then things open up and you realize, well, they're really on the ball. They actually see how partner groups work together, and where government is perhaps dropping the ball in certain areas, and where the charity that they work for is really, driving the bus on some things that really bring people into stewardship and conservation. I think that there's a lot of people that underestimate the ideas that they have, and they probably don't see themselves. I'm a fish and wildlife technician. I'm not a administrator or a senior manager or whatever, and that's fine. Like, I mean, I'm a communications guy at heart. Like, I was love writing, and I've always had the gift of the gab and stuff like that. But if it didn't, it's not like, oh, I'm gonna have my heart set on being the executive director. Now, my mentor in life, I'll call him out by name, Mike Reeder, had, really believed in my opportunity to be moving forward and taking my ideas and passion to a level that could really make a difference for the organization. And Mike was the one that introduced me to a formal association leadership training, and that was done through not only CBI. Just recently, actually, I wanted to mention that as well. I'm a proud alumni of CBI. Thank you very much for that opportunity. But in 2009, I worked on my certified association executive designation through the Canadian Society of Association Executives, and that was an opportunity presented by my mentor, who really felt like, and he found a way for the organization to help fund me in that respect, and I put in the time and came out with the designation. So you gotta have support around you. You gotta be the people that believe in you, and I certainly had that. But it was pretty easy for me. Like, I knew I can take you to the spot on a trail that I used to hunt partridge with my dad, where he stopped, and I could take you to the exact spot where he pointed to a crest on his vest, and he said, "That's why I belong to this organization." And it took my breath away that my dad would be so passionate about being involved and being a member. Do you know how many people don't have that anymore? Like, I'm a proud member, and there was something about that, and I went on to become a member myself, and also work for that organization for 25 years. And so that was, I actually grew up with the organization that, would be my career in it. What a great catapult to the opportunity that Watersheds Canada has provided me as well. So I get to talk about conservation and stewardship, and I probably read all the Leopold's Sand County Almanac about 100 times, and I get to play that out every day with my great team.
Wow, that's amazing. How inspiring. Because I think I think when people think someone's had one job, that it hasn't, that it's maybe been boring. But when I'm hearing you and I'm like, no, it doesn't sound like it's boring at all. Sounds amazing.
I think it's cool. Like I just think it's
Yeah.
great. You can get to and I love meeting um uh conservation volunteers or people out in the field. I love working at that grassroots level. I can't really work a corporate boardroom very well, although that's part of the job, and I embrace that. But put me, I have a speaking engagement in a couple of weeks. You know where the speaking engagement is?
Tell
On
me.
somebody on somebody's back deck.
I love it.
Yeah, perfect, right? It's going to be,
Yeah.
that's awesome. It's actually, a full-on professional presentation on somebody's back deck. Perfect.
Yeah. 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 How can I get a back deck presentation? I need one of them. That sounds great. And I think, when we think about, all of the different stakeholders that we talked about today, whether it be, your board and staff and funders and other partners and your mentor, is it lonely sometimes?
Yeah, it is. I've struggled with that for a couple things, for a couple of reasons, and and my staff, if they're listening to this, they won't be surprised on this, admission that I do struggle with some anxiety issues, and I deal with and what really ramps it up is isolation. So working from home, a long winter day. So I've had to come up with strategies to break that up for me. And although I say that, I love it too. Like it's a great lifestyle. I'm here with my dogs, and it's just, I go for a walk. And I'm on some acreage here. I can just do whatever. It's great. But you get overthinking, and you get in your own head sometimes. So you miss the energy of other people. But as I mentioned before, earlier on, and I can't remember what the question was related to, but I said you got to wear a brave face, you got to have armor. So I don't want staff to feel like, even though I may be having one of those off days mentally, that I can't, I'm still not upbeat about where the organization is going. And I actually, that's important. I think that anybody that's at this level needs to find get out for a walk, get off the Zoom meetings if you don't need to, say, make it a phone call so I can walk while we talk. And there's lots of things you can add to your day. I've been getting out of the house and just going to the public library to do if I have to do some spreadsheet stuff, I might as well do that at a coffee shop. And I probably don't even talk to anybody but whoever takes my money. But at least
Yeah.
when I come in and I sit down, I've got a little bit of people energy around. So that helps break it up. But it is lonely at the top because you can't really discuss those things that keep you up at night with your staff because you don't want to break their confidence in how you're feeling. But
Yeah.
I hope I answered your question. I went a little wide there, but I feel it's important to talk about.
No, Robert, honestly, you surprised me with your answer, but that's a good thing. Like in terms of, I think we need to have vulnerable conversations like this. I think, and it's one of the reasons I asked it, to be honest. I didn't know what you were going to say, but I think it's those kinds of conversations that have made this series really special, that we hear the real stuff. And so thank you. Thank you for sharing and I'm the same way. I mean, I work from home and I'm looking in these drawers for all the secrets, right? There's no there's no secrets, right? It's you have to get the work done, but at the same time, I'm the first one to admit there's some days where I'm like, I need you to phone me. I can't do another Zoom call today. So
Yeah.
when you said that, I was like, that's me too, right? So I absolutely feel that. I appreciate that very much. What are some of the resources that you use? Do you have a coach? I mean, you mentioned a mentor, but do you have a coach? Do you read anything in terms of leadership? Anything specifically that you could guide us towards, or are you sort of doing it as whenever you need to reach out?
Oh, I'm a podcast fan.
Yeah.
So there's I now I say that I couldn't cite one in particular, but I podcast a lot. I yeah, I try to I try to eliminate I'm trying to tone down my screen time too. This job is really screen heavy, so trying to um, you know throw on a podcast while I'm going for a run or doing some things around the house. I like cutting firewood, and I tend to, find that as an activity that
Yeah.
keeps me going. But anyways, there's the great resources available, and but you can information overload, like how many blogs you're going to read after you've been on the screen all day. So I find a podcast is the way to go.
Yeah, podcasts are great. And yeah, if you do end up sort of thinking of them, we're happy to share them as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's one of the benefits of a podcast is you can do something kind of like radio. You can kind of do something else and be tuned in. So that's a great suggestion too for people. We've got a few opportunities for questions today. I know Della's got a question. We're going to start with that one. But we do have a number of participants here, so feel free to throw in any of those questions you have. I'll ask one more and then we'll head to the attendees and their great questions. But when I think about, the sort of long-term impact of being an executive director, you've been there for 2 years. Did you set out, you mentioned sort of you had sort of lofty goals but do you have any of those sort of goals you have in mind to make sure that by the time your tenure's done that you've accomplished ABC, or are you sort of working with a strategic plan on that?
I actually like what you just said there. That's a good suggestion. I need to actually chart that one out. Like I don't have, if I had a retirement date or whatever, maybe I might be able to, it's like you do all day at work,
Yeah.
a work back plan.
Yeah.
But the reality is our a lot of my ideas would involve, board approval and strategic direction, and that's not incumbent upon me to make those decisions. So, interesting timing for my tenures. I'm just coming into the writing of our new strategic planning, which kicks off it kicks off actually in January to be ready for 2026. So our current strategic plan is basically got a year and a half left on it. So it's great. I can do all the background work and get things ready. There's also a lot of great things happening to support the mission of Watersheds Canada in terms of relevancy. And I'm really I believe a good issue drives engagement, drives involvement. In the last couple of years, for example, we've seen like basically a snowless winter. We've seen derechoes and tornadoes running through. We've seen floods in Toronto. We've seen blue-green algae in lakes I've never experienced before, where people can't have their dogs or the kids in for a swim. We're seeing all these issues that signal you better support Watersheds Canada and other great environmental organizations in our partnership network that are doing all the heavy lifting on topics like shoreline restoration, in water habitat protection, climate change resiliency measures through stewardship work. People don't want to feel like we live in this hopeless world of hopeless mess of worldly problems. They want to be involved, even if it's planting 50 plants along the shore. The best quote that we've ever had, by the way, for Natural Edge program, in my opinion, is one time somebody said, "I went from being a shoreline property owner to a custodian of the lake." And love that. Like that. There you go. That's what people are doing it for. They want to have that involvement. So organizations like Watersheds Canada and our great partnership network provides the people to really feel like they can. It's a can-do kind of feeling.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, we're going to get to Della's question because it's a really good one. So she's asking, do you have a 5, 10, or 25-year strategic plan? So we'll start with that one, and she's got a secondary question too. But
It's
how 5 years?
It's 5. It's 5. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
5 is probably too long.
Yeah.
In terms of efficiency, to say you got that off your desk and you can move along is fine, but I wouldn't rest on 5 years. I think that it needs to be, so long as it's agile enough, you need to be able to make decisions and maneuver and I believe in this expression is called momentary absolutism, that things are absolutely this way until they're not. You can't be locked in and just because the strategic plan is telling you, you can't miss opportunities.
Yeah. I remember talking to a client when we were in the maybe 60 days into the pandemic, and they said, "Oh, my board has told me that I need to redo our 5-year strategic plan." And she's like, "So I'm thinking 5-minute strategic plan, like she was like, things were changing so fast, right? So
Yeah.
as much as you can create something like that, the fluidity is obviously going to be important if the world's, obviously what we went through with COVID. But so the second part of that question is, do you find value in spending time to develop long-term vision? So I think there's that long-term, those goals we talked about. So she's asking if you find value in that.
I do find value in that, and I've actually that's all talk and no action right now. I need to I'm actually going to get some help on that. I'm actually going to pursue some executive coaching to help me with that aspect of my life. I actually feel like I probably and I'm sure every executive director is going to admit this, that I find myself getting down rabbit holes and into the weeds, and all of a sudden the day is gone, and uh, I've got a great whiteboard beside me. You'll love it, but it's the same ink on it that it was there, 4 months ago. And that sucks because you don't want to, there's going to be days where you need to be heavy admin, but the executive director needs those, really, stretch out with the ideas, put things on paper, make some phone calls. And, it's the expression is it's the start that stops most people. Well, that's true. Like there's some great ideas there, but that's there's big long range thinking. And it has to be timed right with some certain things, but you can break, an executive director can break the back of some of those ideas with, usually it surprises you how quick it can happen. Usually it's less than a 10-minute phone call. Just pick up the phone, just get people talking, get ideas, and then don't stop there.
Yeah. So how did you integrate with the funders and the donors as a new executive director? We know Barbara King, wonderful, executive director. She had great relationships. How did you transition those relationships as well? And maybe that transition period with the two of you helped, but I'd love to know how you sort of took that element on of the job.
Oh, great question. Yeah, well, that's why I'm singing the praises of the organization for how they did things right. There was enough of that shadowing period, and that was probably a focus on Barb's end. She wanted to make sure that funders weren't let down, I know, and that it was pretty smooth. Like the transition was happening at a time of growth, thanks to Barb and her team. And so I came in at a good position. It's not like I had to come in and do a bunch of cleanup. It was a good environment to go out and meet with funders. There wasn't like any kind of shame in the change up with executive director. I didn't have to go out. There wasn't any fence mending required on my end, which is incredibly important for the organization. And yeah, Barb was great in introducing me to the funders that she counted on, and it's to Barb's credit that she fostered a great relationship that helped the organization achieve its first legacy gift. So like that, and that set my tenure into good good momentum and good speed, and lots of things happen as a result of that. But I also, to give myself credit, I also introduced my team to new partnership opportunities and new contacts. And some of those contacts are still coming to fruition. Yeah, I won't speak to them all, but there's been some good opportunities because of 27 years of my own relationship building and bridge building and so on in this sector. But having worked in conservation all these years, there's a whole other side of the environmental sector, the green sector, that I really probably didn't have any exposure to. So it's been a learning experience.
Is it challenging being an executive director to a national organization?
Well, yeah, like and the board is if there's one thing that the board reminds me of all the time is that we have to fit our name. That we can't just be you know Perth area watersheds, which actually we're not. And in the last year or so, through a new opportunity with RBC Tech for Nature, we're able to take our Natural Edge program and find new national partners. So we really are becoming national in scope. Even our youth programs, we just set up a nature discovery backpack program with Buffalo Lake Métis Settlement in Alberta. We've got partnerships in Manitoba, developing partnerships in PEI currently, and developing great relationships in New Brunswick. So we really are national in that scope, but it doesn't mean that I'm jet setting or that my team is jet setting here and there every week. That we count on our great communications, and we set up the partnerships right so that they are working at a national level to keep our name in the national spotlight. I mentioned as well about our Google success, and that has helped achieve some earned media. For example, last December, we were featured in the Globe and Mail. We've been on CBC National, and have had some great media success. And that's very, very important these days to have that combination of local media. And we love local media too. And we're very successful in getting the either the front page or mentions in newspapers. Outdoor Canada magazine has supported our work, and we are always very serious and diligent about our national scope and our national reach.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier about your father inspiring you, and you know the exact place and the exact moment.
Yeah.
Who do you hope to inspire?
Oh, I hadn't thought of that one. Well, I've got two boys that I mean, if when I was in school, if I get a 68%, that was a good day. I got
Yeah.
two boys that are rocking the mid 90s, like it's nobody's business. Yeah. And sometimes my boys say that when they approach, when they approach their career, they want to have that kind of enthusiasm that I bring to it. And of course, it's easy for them to see it because I work from home, right? And I like to write and I like to communicate. So they see that. I guess the best thing I can hope for, the number one fans in my life I want to be my boys.
That's a great legacy.
But I mean, I've got a great team as well. Our staff, we have a staff of 11 right now, including myself. And it works both ways. They inspire the heck out of me, and I hope that I feel like some days I've left a meeting with, I feel like yeah, I've just thrown somebody a really good, solid that they're gonna take that and run. So if I can just basically provide the raw and the encouragement to, and the empowerment to go forward with their own contribution, I think that makes a big difference. Sam gave us a heads up, by the way, that she was experiencing a storm in her community. So
No worries. Well, we are actually coming close to 5 p.m. So I think we could definitely wrap up for this evening. Thank you so much, Robert, for coming and joining and speaking with Sam tonight about your experiences with leadership and the transition with Watersheds Canada. And I hope that everyone has been able to take something away and has been inspired from the conversation tonight. We will follow up with everyone that has attended and registered to the webinar with some resources. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope to see you next month.
thanks, Hannah. Thanks, everybody.